Figure 3.3, defining a member function with a parameter. In this example, we slightly enhance our gradebook class, and in particular, we're going to allow our display message member function to receive a string that represents the course name for the particular course that the instructor is teaching. Now, we have a couple of new features in this example. Let me first go ahead and run it for you. And what we're going to see is that we're prompted to enter the course name. So let's say we type CS 101 Introduction to C++. And when I hit enter, it says welcome to the gradebook for CS 101 Introduction to C++, the string that we had entered. Now, in this example, we're actually going to introduce the C++ standard library's string class. The standard library classes, by the way, all start with lowercase class names. But again, as a convention, when you create your own classes, typically you'll create them with a starting capital letter, an initial capital letter. So let's take a look first at our includes and using statements. As in Lesson 1, in this case, we're including the IOStream header files so that we can have access to cout for output, cin for input, and the endl stream manipulator for inserting a new line and flushing the output buffer in an output statement. We're also including the standard library's string header file, and that gives us access to a couple of things, one of which is the string class, which allows us to represent a string of information in memory, and then the getLine function, which allows us to read a line of text into a string object. The getLine function is important because when you want to input into a string, if you want to input anything that contains spaces, tabs, new line characters, you have to use getLine for that purpose. If you are using cin to read into a string, it will only read one, what I'll call token at a time, meaning that basically white space is considered a delimiter for each token when you're typing at the command line. So we want to be able to read an entire line of text in this program, and that is the purpose of the getLine function, which is from the string header file. So let's take a look at main first and see how we use our gradebook class, and then we'll take a look at the gradebook class's definition. Now, the first thing we declared here at line 28 is a variable called name of course, and its type is string. Now again, string is not a built-in C++ type. It is part of the C++ standard library. There is an actual class that's been defined that represents the concept of a string in memory. So name of course will store the string representing the course name, and then we also have declared a gradebook called myGradebook, and we're going to use that to once again display a message to the user. We prompt the user to enter the course name, and then we use at line 33 the getLine function to read in that course name. Now, getLine requires two arguments. The first one is the input stream from which it should obtain the characters. In this case, we say we want to obtain the characters from the standard input stream cin, which basically means by default the user typing at the keyboard. And we want to place the line of text into the string variable name of course. We then are going to skip a line in the output. When the user is typing the course name, the user has to press enter to submit the course name. And just to show you once again, if I run this, so let's type CS 101 Introduction to C++, exclamation point. When I press enter, the pressing of the enter key is going to move me to the next line automatically in the output window, and then outputting this additional endl stream manipulator is going to effectively cause me to skip a line. So that's why I get the blank line, and then I get the output that is generated by line 38, where I tell the myGradebook gradebook object to call its display message member function, and in this case we're giving it as an argument the name of the course that the user entered, and as you saw when I ran the program, the output contains the name of the course. So let's go ahead and take a look at our display message member function of class gradebook. So again, we have the class gradebook. Its body is delimited by the curly braces on lines 15 and 23. The class ends with a semicolon, and in a moment I'll remove that and compile the program again for you so you can see some of the error messages you might get if you accidentally forget it. And then we have our display message member function, which receives as its argument a string called course name. And in lines 20 and 21, we then output welcome to the gradebook 4. We drop to the next line with a \n escape sequence. Then we output the course name, and then we output an exclamation point followed by endl, which outputs another new line character and forces the output to appear immediately. So again, not a big enhancement to the gradebook class, just showing you that we can indeed declare a member function that receives a parameter, and of course you can have as many parameters as you want by having a comma separated list in the parameter list parentheses. Now let's just briefly take away the semicolon at line 23, and let's go ahead and try to build our project. So when I go to the debug menu and select build solution, it's going to invoke the compiler, and you can see we get a bunch of error messages in this case, and the problem is that the error messages don't necessarily really tell you what's going on here. So it says gradebook followed by int is illegal, and the way it's getting that is the gradebook class followed by the keyword int, which is the next real token that represents program code. Remember, comments get ignored by the compiler. So that's not very helpful, but this is, did you forget a semicolon? So that's actually something that's relatively new in at least Visual C++. In older versions of Visual C++, it did not necessarily give you that additional piece of information. Also, we have an error message that says the return type of main should be int instead of gradebook. I'm not sure why it thinks that, but based on the way it's parsing the code, because it doesn't have that semicolon, it's producing that error message, and separately return cannot convert from int to gradebook. It's the way it's getting that is it thinks for some reason, because it thinks the return type of main is gradebook, returning 0. 0 is an int, and an int cannot be converted to a gradebook, so we get these kind of strange error messages. The first one was somewhat helpful though in saying did you forget a semicolon, and when we go back and add that in and then go to our debug menu and say build solution, you can see that this time we succeeded in building the project.